for lesson 16 from unit 7. Today we talked all about factors and greatest common factors. So a factor is a number, they're usually found in pairs, that can be multiplied to make the number that you're trying to find factors for. Also, if that number that you're trying to find factors for could be divided by a whole number without a remainder or a fraction or a decimal, that number is a factor. So there's kind of a working definition. Let's take a look at an example. So if I take the number 12, and I think about numbers I can multiply to make 12, those pairs of numbers are factors. I like to organize my factor thinking in what I call a factor rainbow. It kind of looks pretty, but it's also really useful because one is a factor for every single number, right? 1 times the number itself is always a factor pair. So what I've got here is I've got the smallest factor I can have and the greatest factor I can have. Then I kind of work my way up. I know that this is an even number, so I know that it must be divisible by 2, and 2 times 6 is 12. I know that 12 can be divided by 3, and I know that 3 times 4 is 12. And at this point, I know that I'm done, right? Because the next number is 4, right? And it's already linked. So all of my factor pairs are present there. Okay. Some things to think about. 1 is always a factor. All even numbers are divisible by 2. A quick factor check for 3 is if you can add the digits in a number, so like 1 plus 2 equals 3, and the sum is divisible by 3, that number is a factor of 3. 4, all numbers divisible by 4 are even numbers. If I'm doing 5, the number should end in a 0 or a 5. If I'm doing 6, it must have 2 and 3 as factors, which makes sense because 2 times 3 is 6. If I can't divide it by 2 and by 3, I'm not going to be able to divide it by 6. And then 9 also has a factor check of if I can add the digits and the sum is divisible by 9. 10 has to be ending in 0 to be divisible by 10, so you can kind of reason your way through that. So the other thing we talked about in our lesson today is the greatest common factor, right? So when we hear that word common, we know that it's something they have in common, it's something they shared, and greatest would mean the factor with the largest value. So if I keep 12 as my number, and then let's say I'm going to do 16. So I now have to start and I have to go through again. So my greatest and smallest is 1 and 16. I know this is even. So 2 times 8. It's not divisible by 3. It's not divisible by 4. Excuse me, it is divisible by 4. 4 times itself. It's not divisible by 5. It's not divisible by 6. It's not divisible by 7. It is divisible by 8. I'm done. So when I look at these lists, both lists have 1 on them. Both lists have 2 on them. Both don't have 3. They both have 4 as a factor. They don't both have 6. They don't both have 12 or 8 or 16. So 4 is the factor that they have in common that is the greatest of all of them. So if I was comparing the numbers 12 and 16, 4 is the greatest common factor. We sometimes see this abbreviated as GCF. That is the greatest common number for that. In order to do this, you'd need to have lists of the factors for both of them, and then you'd need to identify the greatest factor amongst them. Good luck on your homework.